Oh my goodness. Okay, I am unmuted. I don't know about all of you, but all I could think about today was getting here tonight, and I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so thrilled to be in this group with you. Okay, before we get started, we have a lot to cover tonight. Let's jump in. Thank you, Nadine, so much for unmuting me and allowing me to be here. If you can, I know you guys have already been jumping in the chat. I've been loving all of the comments, but if you can share where you are joining from, I want to say hello to a bunch of people. We have some of our senior doulas are here. We have brand new doula givers here. It is amazing. So let's just give a shout out. You may have a doula giver that is very close to you. Okay, great. Anne is here. Kira is here from Cleveland, Ohio. Beautiful. Clarice is here. I love that. And we will answer all of your questions. Letitia is here from Arizona. Myra is here from Raleigh, North Carolina. I have not been there yet. Want to be there. Wanted to go. Myra is here. Yes, I'm sorry you guys are moving around. I did that. Wendy is here. Thank you so much, Wendy, for being here. Amy is here from Wisconsin. Sheila is here from the Hudson Valley. You have more people in the Hudson Valley. Maggie Dial, you are here. Tara's here. We have so many great people here. Christine is here from California. Kelly is here from BC, Canada. Suzanne is here from Syracuse, New York. Jackie from Oregon. From Milwaukee, Oregon. Really beautiful. Jane is here. Okay, we'd be here all night. Michelle, Shelly, thank you guys for being here. You guys are jumping in. The reason that we want to do that is just we want to say hi to everyone and bring you all together, but you may have a doula giver that is close to you and you may not even know it. So I know already there's a couple that I know that you are close with. Yeah, Michael, Erin, Sydney, Geneva, welcome, Michelle. Yeah, it's great to have you here. All right, let's take a deep breath. Let's get settled into this moment because this is a defining moment, beginning of your journey. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview, if I may, about why this moment is so important and why you showing up at this moment is so important. And congratulations to all of you who said yes. That is one of the greatest first steps that you could have done is said, I know I'm being called to this. I know I need to show up and I'm saying yes to it. And so congratulations. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment. Why are we at this moment in time? So I do want to give you a little bit of background and really give you some inspiration here. We've been dying for thousands of years. We know how to do this as a human race. Kind of a spoiler alert, but not really. But I really want to share with you why we're in this very dysfunctional moment with our relationship with not just end of life, but with life as well. Because end of life teaches us the full circle, the sacredness of the journey, and we've removed that. So when I was and I'm a registered nurse by trade as a former hospice, which is an end of life care nurse and oncology nurse, knowing my calling was to work with those at the end of life. And I have to say, honestly, that most of them did not go as well as they could have, even with hospice care, even in that space. And so saying, what's happened here? And how did it become the number one fear in the world? Because you know as well as I do, when fear is present in a situation, it makes us make really poor choices. It makes us really not think clearly. And if we pretend like we are now, I'm going to use a general term, like end of life, it's optional, maybe let push it away, push it away, push it away. When it does show up and 100% guaranteed, one day that it will show up. And that doesn't have to be an awful thing, by the way. It's a natural part of the human journey. When we're unprepared for it, it can make it a really difficult, challenging thing, not just for the person, but for everyone included. And so for me as that hospice nurse, really trying to make a difference, really trying to figure out what can we do here and what happened here. When I went and did my research, it was only about 100, 120 years that we've been in this place where we have removed seeing end of life, talking about it, supporting with education about it in families, in medical systems, anywhere. And at the same time, we've made huge medical advances. So in a sense, that's good. But again, you always have to be wary of using something, not letting it use you. And when we've learned how to keep people alive, which we can do very, very easily in the medical system now, We forgot to teach doctors at the same time that end of life is a natural part of the journey, and what support do they give patients and families at that point? So right now they're taught how to keep people alive, but keeping people alive and living are two very different things. And I will tell you, there's a very gray area that can be very dangerous and cause a lot of additional pain, emotionally, physically, spiritually, in that space when we're clawing and trying to keep a body going when there's no quality of life. And that is something for me to decide for myself, not for other people. I am going to educate and I am going to give you all the information that I know, but it's empowering for us to know that we need to decide what quality of life is for me and when I would want to be home, to be kept comfortable, to have tight symptom management, to be fed chocolate ice cream 3 times a day. I'm just saying you can have whatever you want, by the way. It's really about quality of life and comfort measures, warm blankets, great music playing, like all of the things that you can create. And not only that, at the end of life, take that into your life today. I want you to think about quality of life for you. You are going to learn so much in this course about life. Yeah, we're learning to care for people at the end of life, but you're going to learn a whole bunch about life through the wisdom of those at the end of life and what we've learned. And it has literally changed myself and many of, again, if not all of the doula givers that go through this course. So it's such an exciting moment because you change your perspective of something and you change your life. And this will have wisdom on so many ways. So with that, I just want to point out that I've learned everything about how to live from those who were dying when leaving this world, and been honored and privileged to be with over 1,000 people at this point and counting at the end of life. And so many people say the same things, the wisdom that they said, no matter what culture and religion. And I was paying attention immediately. Immediately, I was paying attention to what they wanted me to know. Time is your greatest commodity. Treat each day like it's one little lifetime. Be present, be kind, be non-judgmental. Follow your heart. It knows the way. Follow your heart, whatever it's saying to you, it knows the way. So that when you are in the place where this human body is going to end its journey, you can say, okay, well done. Because that's peace, that's acceptance, that's a life well lived, and that's a good death. So we have so many things that we're aware of in the last 120 years, how this got completely removed. Well, it's time to bring it back. And like I said, the sacredness, not just in how you live with the awareness, but the opportunity to see beyond the human journey. When you're with people at the end of life, there's something that happens there. There's something that allows you, time disappears like we know it. There's a sacredness about it. You know that you are part of a much bigger experience going on here. And that allows you to kind of sit back and say, okay, what is this journey about? And what am I here for? And what do I do with this? So the gift of end of life wisdom teaches everything about how to live, right? Because when people say that we're all connected, that there's no judgment, that we're all part of this one unconditional loving energy, that everything here in this experience is to help you to evolve, expand, to grow your consciousness, and that ultimately we're all connected. So if that wisdom was readily available from those at the end of life, if we all knew we were all connected, would we be bombing each other? Would there be a different way that we interact? Well, I think we all know the answer to that, right? So my thinking is that have we, and I think that, maybe we can do a poll here if you agree, have we removed consciously and maybe unconsciously or subconsciously removed the greatest teacher about how to live? And that's directly related to the chaos that we see in this world today. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. So this is going to be an incredible journey, not just for you learning how to care for others, but for your own journey as well, because you said yes. And we know how to do this. And one of the things, again, that following my heart when I was, just showing up to help other countries that have much larger challenges than the United States and a lot of countries with the support that we have with medications and education. when I would go and volunteer in other countries and work with people, it was in Zimbabwe, Africa, that I went to volunteer as a hospice nurse and go out with them. And they taught me everything. And that everything was this, that they didn't have the medications, they didn't have the surgeries. Women, the average age of a woman was 42. There were 7-year-old children taking care of dying parents at times. It was like a no-brainer to do whatever you could to help, but they did have time. And they were taking somebody and training them on what the shutdown of the body looks like and what people could do for comfort, or just know that it's a natural experience, but hold that space for the entire end of life process as that outside support system for the family, for the person that was at the end of life. And here's the thing, it worked beautifully. So it immediately said to me, wait a minute, we have this all wrong. We're treating death like it's a medical experience. Of course, it can't be fixed. We're expecting doctors to fix it, and we're expecting the medical system to handle the volume. We can't. Number one, you can't. But number two, we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to as a medical system. It's great to have that, but that's not the answer. So had we been trying to force the answer, and I remember when I went to my hospice CEO and I said, the end of lives are not going well for most of the families. He said, I go, we have to do more. He said, that's all. He said, that's all we can do. All we can offer is an hour once a week as the nurse. And I showed him the training. I said, I have an idea. If I'm supposed to teach them how to do this, here's what I came up with. And he said, this is great. Can't do it. Why not? Won't get reimbursed for it. So the frustration of that, I was like, finally, I was like, well, I'm just going to go give it at the library for free. And before you know it, a global movement is formed because people die everywhere. And again, bringing back the awareness that it's caregivers, it's family caregivers. It's a human skill that has just been lost in the last 100 years. It's back now. And now you can have death doulas like you have birthing doulas. So to say I am thrilled that you are here is an understatement, because this is the moment and we're just at the infancy of this. So over the next 12 weeks, I want to just share a little bit about what you can expect. First of all, live semesters are the most exciting things. They're just wonderful. We're just going to have the best time together, and it's going to be a transformation. I'm going to suggest a few things, and we're going to give you some housekeeping at the beginning, but I also want to give you some life skill, if I may. The human part of us knows the familiar. The human part, the analytical, knows what the input is and knows the familiar, knows how to analyze what it sees, kind of like what's here tangible. The expanded higher self part of you, the analytical mind, we love you very much, is not going to understand it all, because there's a much bigger journey. There's a much bigger guidance system. During your 12 weeks here, when you feel, and if you feel pushed to the boundaries, if you feel like, I don't know if I can do this, push through it. Know that that's the ego. Take a deep breath and go into your heart. And I have a technique that I'll give you right now. It's called Ray. So when you have the ego, think of it like a fearful little child. It wants to keep you small. It wants to keep you safe. So we're always going to come from a place of love. When that pops up, which it does, by the way, all of the time, when that voice pops up, you want to recognize that it's the ego. What does that feel like? It feels stressful, anxiety. Oh, I don't know. Okay, I'm fearful, like fear, right? You want to take a deep breath and you want to recognize that it's the ego. You want to acknowledge it because it was probably very useful at some point in your life, right? When you were growing up and keeping you not to get hurt again or whatnot. But you've got this now, that you're in control now, that you're following the heart, and you want to acknowledge it and integrate. You want to say to that fearful little child part of us, say, it's okay, you can relax. I've got this now. Just, relax and let's do this together. So we don't push away that, we want to integrate it. So if that does come up, or you're feeling like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, great. Why? That means you're right on the edge of that expansion. And here's the other thing that I'll say to you. Trust the process. If you trust this process, if you follow the classes, if you trust the guidance, it will unfold how it's supposed to. And that's a beautiful thing, because I will often say to our graduates and a lot of people that we know that from that day, talking to the CEO of hospice, going out to the library, having the library fill up, putting this online, having thousands of people come, that was over 16 years ago. We're still there doing it every month and all of the things we do. I don't plan anything, and I want to explain what I mean by that. It's not an analytical, calculated plan of how to do this. It's a heart-guided, inspired plan. If something comes in from the heart, if it says go teach, at the library, I don't even question it because I know that's how life works. And so I want you to know that you want to take your hands off the wheel and just follow the process, because when you do, it's going to start to unfold. And I just want to emphasize that how incredibly liberating is that, that it's not all on you, that there's a higher co-creation guidance that we're here to do. We're here to be of service. We have gifts that we're here to share. Allow them to come through, allow them to lead you. And this is your gift, or at least one major one of them. So take it easy, follow the weekly instruction, how we're going to do it, and have a great time. This should not be added stress. Yes, there's going to be work involved, but here's the thing. When you're following your soul's path, it's not work. It's like soul food. So enjoy it, ask questions, meet, let it unfold, have those epiphanies. I just got chills. It's so exciting. Okay, so I am going to introduce you to your lead trainer. So you might know her already. She's absolutely amazing. Her name is Christine Souza, and I want to tell you why I chose Christine Souza to be the first of the lead trainers of Doula Givers. I was talking with Christine. I said, Christine, it's like having a baby and leaving it for the first time with like a sitter. It's like hard to take your hands completely off the wheel. Why Christine has been chosen to be the lead trainer. First of all, we need her because we are expanding and growing and people need this work. I've been watching Christine for years. She was a nurse as well. Her past, she was unfulfilled. She knew the stress of it. She followed her heart, not analytical, followed, this is I know I'm supposed to be doing this. And here's the thing that I love. First of all, she's holistic, heart-centered, compassionate, and loving. But I've also watched her blossom in all facets of her life. And that's such an exciting thing when we watch the doula givers, because when you say yes to this path, it changes your all of your life, your health, your relationships with your family, community, it just can't not. So it just can't be in one space. It's in the frequency of all of it. And I've just watched her find her alignment and blossom and her joy, and she's just wonderful. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Christine on. She's going to do a little intro, and then she's going to get on with the first class. I am going to sit back with you. I am going to be here. You're going to she'll tell you all the housekeeping. You're going to do a 30-minute Q&A. We're going to meet in the Facebook group. It's going to be an incredible 12 weeks to begin, because then it goes on. So Christine, why don't you come on? Thank you so much for being here, and you can take it away.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Suzanne. Oh my gosh. Hello, everybody. I just got tears in my eyes thinking about gosh, I get emotional, how big this moment is for each of you. You have no idea what is in store for you. I am so excited. Not only have I been able to step into this space as a doula giver, but I have healed in ways, my emotional, physical, spiritual body, everything has changed. And I am so excited. You are ready to just get ready. That's all I'm going to say. Just get ready to go. This is a big night for all of us. So I just want to welcome you guys. I'm just so grateful and honored to just be in this space with all of you. This journey that you are about to embark on will be transformational on so many levels. So my journey, like Suzanne mentioned, began. I have a nursing background, like she mentioned. I started with oncology. I love taking care of those patients, but I always knew I wanted to do end of life work, kind of as bookends. So beginning and end, and just life got really busy with family and raising my crazy boys, and then my parents aged and declined really quickly, and they all seemed to pass away within a really short amount of time. I had a huge amount of loss in a short amount of time. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is caring for the caregivers, because I know many of you might be currently in the situation, or you've already have gone through that, or you are going in it right. You're going to be stepping into that space soon. And so one of the things that I'm really passionate about is caring for the caregivers. And one of the greatest gifts that I've gotten from doula givers is really learning how to care for myself where I'm caring for others. And so I didn't do a very good job back then. And so I just got really, really sick. And so what happened to me is that I burned out on all levels. And I refer to that time as emotional, physical, and spiritual bankruptcy. I hit bottom physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I really, when I experienced that amount of loss, I really began to question my own mortality. And I really began to question, what in the world are you doing? I loved my nursing job, but I was feeling like I could go no further, and I just didn't feel expansive. I found it very limiting. And so I think that doula givers, I was divinely guided to doula givers. Three different people said to me within 2 days, have you heard of a death doula? Have you heard of a death doula? And so I sat in quiet contemplation, and I just knew that that was what I was supposed to be doing. And when Suzanne was talking about your soul expands and it makes no sense at all, like quit this job that pays pretty well, okay. So I took a big leap of faith, and I joined this beautiful group. And so I graduated from the 2020 Doula Givers group, and my life has never been the same. So I began to really, like what Suzanne was saying, I really began to just dive in. I just drank up. I drank it. I drank it all. And it was during COVID. And the group that I graduated with, just I still maintain so many significant important relationships with all of these people. And so when you share space with others who are operating in this heart space, then not only will your heart expand, but you're just going to cause this beautiful ripple effect to change the way that you see death, the way that others view death, and that it'll change the way we live and how we navigate out into the world. And so I want to just say that this program is just a journey of love, expansion, and just being of maximum service. Not only are you going to help to have your relationship with death, but then also you're going to be able to help support people with your loved ones and out in your community. I am so excited for you guys for this 12-week journey. Everything will change. I just want to encourage you guys to all stay active in the Facebook group. Please stay involved and really just drink it in. I know that each of you, that this is a calling, because not everybody gets called to this space. Not everybody gets called to end of life work. And so I'm just over the moon excited for each of you, because I know what's in store for you. So get prepared. This is going to be an adventure, and just be sure to just stay connected with the group. So we are just here to support you each step of the way. And I'm so honored that you guys chose to answer the call, because this is going to be transformational. So get your journals ready, because this will change your life. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Suzanne. You have created a program way beyond, I don't know. Again, I just can't thank you enough. This is an amazing program. So stay tuned, everybody. Get ready, because this is a beautiful, beautiful journey we're all about to embark on. All right. So I just want to say again, we are so glad that you guys are all here. I'm just going to give a little disclaimer that I am not tech savvy at all. So just really wanting to just be mindful that I am going to go ahead and do just a couple house cleaning things before we get started here, because if I forget, I may forget this at the end. So each class, each of the live training sessions, we're going to have the live training, and then there will be a 30-minute live Q&A session at the end. So we'll either be asking you to do question or hashtag question for questions. We're going to try and answer as many questions as we can. But then also, if we aren't able to answer all of the questions, then for sure do hashtag question in the live semester Facebook group, and we'll get to those questions as soon as we are able. But during the live Q&A, you can also raise your digital hand after the training here. So just be aware that we do all of our we do the best that we can to answer all the questions, but sometimes we want to honor your time as well. So when we get started here, we're just going to go ahead and quiet the chat so that everybody can experience the live training. And then there will be some homework. So don't worry. It is not a big homework assignment, but it is really a reflective homework assignment. And then we're also going to do the reflective assignment. So the first initial homework assignment is I want you guys to grab a journal. If you don't have a journal, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy at all, it could just be a notebook, but really begin to document your personal experiences and insights. Because for me personally, I kept a journal and I look back from 5 years ago and I think, oh my goodness, I've learned so much. And what I want to share with you is that when you are done with your certified end of life doula training, you will be fully trained and prepared to step out into the space as an end of life doula. So I want to reassure you that you may not feel prepared right now to step into this space, but you will have everything that you need um, stepping into that space. So what I want you to do is really be mindful about doing your journaling, because I think that you'll find it beneficial as you reflect back. And so I would really encourage you guys to just put on your calendar to schedule the just put this live session in on your calendar and make a commitment to yourself, because and then just allowing some time to study during the week. You know, schedule yourself, put yourself first on your calendar, because things can really get busy. You know, we're all doing life on life's terms, and so really being intentional about the time that you spent, because this is an incredible opportunity. And then also for your homework assignment, please be sure and write a personal mission statement for your Doula Givers training experience. And I already saw a couple people in the Facebook group are already being brave and posting it in the group. I really want to encourage you to each do that. It may evolve over time, but just be sure and be intentional and making and some time to create a personal mission statement for you, because it will help you moving forward. And then first, the reflective assignment. Um, Imagine, and we'll put this in the Facebook group. You don't have to write this down at all. But the first reflective assignment, I want you to um, imagine that you have just received a terminal diagnosis. You want to reflect and write on how would that make you feel? You know, to be honest with you, I just got a phone call from a friend's husband who already has a diagnosis of multiple myeloma. She just was treated for breast cancer, and he just got the diagnosis yesterday that he has ALS. And that really hit me hard. Very good friends of ours walking together on this journey. And so I really took a moment today to reflect, how do I feel? How would I feel if that happened to me? It really caused me to pause. So the other question is, what support would you need most from others in this moment? What would happen if you had a terminal diagnosis? And I want to mention that when someone is given a terminal diagnosis, that typically means that you have less than 6 months to live. What would that look like for you? And what support would you need to have in place to support you in this journey? And then what responses or behaviors would not be helpful? I think that is a really powerful message. I was talking to someone recently in the Good Death seminar series, and someone had said, oh, I hope you have life insurance. And I thought, wow, that may not be something that you may want to share with someone in that space at that time. So really take a moment to spend some time. Again, we will post this in the Facebook group, so don't worry about that right now. Just being open and honest. You can repeat those reflective exercises as often as you need to. So for the certification process reminders, I just want to, after the video, I'm going to show you how to mark your module as complete. So we're going to go through the video here in just a moment, and then I'm going to just make sure that you guys know how to complete each module online, because this is going to be really important for you to receive your certificate after you graduate. So without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. Um, I'm just going to say thank you guys again for your patience with me, because this is going to be a big moment for me sharing my screen. So thank you so much. So here we go. Okay, and if you guys could give me a thumbs up, can you see my screen? Ah, excellent, Julia. Thank you so much. I see you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and mute the chat for now, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And Julia, since I see you on the screen, if you can give me a heads up if you can hear the
Hi,
audio.
everyone, and welcome to Doula Giver's
Can you hear it
Certified
okay?
End of Life Doula Training. My name is Suzanne O'Brien. Thank you so much for being part of this movement and taking this training. Most of you know that the End of Life Doula, Death Doula movement has been so positive and so embraced. Now, I've been doing this for about a little over 10 years. But it's really caught on in the last 2 years, and it's gaining momentum at lightning speed. So every day there are several articles being written about end-of-life doulas in the movement. It is such an organic answer to the crisis that we have out there, and a holistic, beautiful way of caring for those at the end of life. So thank you so much for being part of this. Today, you are going to begin your certification training, and my goal and the goal of Doula Givers is to create the best possible training that we know how to do, and share all that information with you so that you can go out into your communities and be fantastic practitioners. Every one person that we help have a positive end of life, and their families, it has a ripple effect, and they are so grateful. And it's just, for me, a part of this much bigger, grander picture of human connection and humanity, kindness, togetherness. So it's incredibly profound and very special. This is a calling. People who come to do this work, you feel it in your gut. You know that you have that gift of being able to stand up for somebody, to advocate, to be that strength and support at a time that is probably one of the most difficult in their life's journey, or one of the most difficult and challenging. And right now we have this very dysfunctional, overwhelming fear of death as a society in general, and that's worldwide for the most part. And so for those of you who do feel strength, comfort, and a gift in this space, for you to come forward to be able to learn more to assist those is really needed and commended. So thank you so much and welcome to, this is level 1, week 1 of your certified end-of-life doula training. So we are going to build an amazing foundation starting tonight and starting today. I always, again, say congratulations for honoring your calling. It's not easy to do. We have very busy lives. We have probably, many different things that pull us in all different directions. And this is something, it's interesting because I say it's something new, and people will say to me, oh, that's just wonderful that you made this new training, this new, area of care. And, I kind of giggle because, well, yeah, I've taken what I've learned in my experience. We've put the new ways that, we care for people in today's world, but this is not something new, caring for the dying. Um, in fact, it's only the last 100 years that we have really gotten so lost. And I often say, okay, well, what did we do before that? We got lost. We've been dying for thousands of years. So really, it's something very natural. We're actually going back to more of the natural way of embracing aging and end of life and caring for people, and again, in a holistic model of care, which is really important. And as you know, there is a movement going on. So, death positive, death wellness, all this great stuff. My goal is to rip the band-aid of fear off of the death experience, because right now death is the second leading fear, and we'll talk about that in the United States and many other places. That fear is paralyzing people. That fear is preventing people from taking any initiative on advanced care planning and talking about what they would want or not want, and even living with the reality that death is a part of the life's journey and a natural one at that. So my goal with all my experience, I've been with over 1,000 people at the end of life at this point, worked with them and their families, and I've worked in several different countries as well, is to be able to share experiences and the knowledge so that people understand the inside look at it, because a lot of people, most people, have not seen somebody at the end of life, and that has created an additional, probably one of the biggest factors in that fear dynamic. So we're racing against death, so we always are like, what can we do next to keep living, keep living, keep living, without looking at all of the elements and variables in the factor of that person's quality of life. But then we don't even know what death really looks like. What is the reality of it? And so to be able to share the experiences, and also to share some really incredible, uplifting, positive, beautiful experiences. And for me, very much so, what makes a positive end of life and what does not. And so there are certain factors that do contribute to a positive end of life, and we're going to talk about that in the training as well. So when you go back, and again, I started by saying that this is a calling, and it really is. It's like you don't, necessarily pick this when you're growing up as, oh, one of the options of, I think I'll be that, I think I'll be a death doula, or I think I'll be a hospice nurse. The path, you know, lays out in front of you. And if you follow your calling, you follow that intuition, that inner voice that says where you're supposed to go. And that's what I did. So I always like the helping profession of nursing, and anything that's a helping profession. I always am about that growing up, and that was consistent throughout my years. But then when I got into nursing, I really noticed that the elders that we were caring for in the hospital, and this is just in general hospital, were really just kind of the forgotten population. And people would even die in the hospital with nobody coming to see them, and nobody was in there with them. We don't really have a lot of time as healthcare practitioners, nurses running in and out, all of that. And then it was really very heartbreaking. So it just took me on the path that I knew I wanted to go work for hospice. And I followed that. And the first day that I was at hospice, I was training with a hospice nurse. And so the first day going out on the visits, I knew that this was the exact place that I was supposed to be in my life. And nothing felt better. It felt like a piece of the puzzle. It was not a job. I didn't even count the hours of the day. I was just so connected and so passionate about what I was doing. And then it led to, now look what's happening here with this whole movement. And it was because of being in that space as the medical provider, as the hospice nurse, and it not being enough. It just, most of the end of lives were not going as well as they could go. And that's being very kind and gentle saying it that way. People are just not
living with the awareness that one day end of life will be part of the journey. People don't even talk about if somebody has a terminal diagnosis. Sometimes they don't even talk that to the person that they have it. It's really a mess, and it doesn't need to be that way. And it's making death be 1,000 times more complicated. Now, the other factor that was really important in my work was that 9 out of 10 people say that they want to be cared for at home if they became terminally ill. Now, this was a National Hospice Organization poll in 1996. Every statistic I have found since then has been the same way. And when I was doing oncology, so I have a background in hospice, which is end of life care, and I also have a background in oncology care, which is cancer care, because interestingly enough, I started out at hospice, and then I really wanted to be the best practitioner and understand fully what was available to patients, what the support system was before they even got to hospice and got a terminal diagnosis, because it was so complicated when they were at that terminal place. I thought, what happens before it, when people are critically ill? So I went back and I went into a medical center and worked in oncology. And, it was so crystal clear that we had so much work to do to put this on the path of getting the support and education that was needed to take care of people as they aged and at end of life and their families. So in the oncology center, many of my patients, and they were of sound mind, clearly can articulate, would say, and these were people who were like at the end, very, very sick, stage 4 cancers, terminal. They'd say, why am I here in the hospital? I just want to go home. And you don't get a lot of rest in the hospital. It's not really the warm and fuzzy place to be. And I kept thinking to myself, if they could tell me that they wanted to go home, why weren't they? And so we uncover this whole dysfunctional relationship with denying that death is a part of our experience. But we need to put things in place to be able to support both patient and families at that end of life place in the home environment, and other places too. But really, let's talk about the home environment where most people want to be, because the family, the loved ones, they are the people that are actually doing the care. The hospice team comes in and supports them and manages the care of that dying patient. The nurse comes in, does an assessment, and teaches the family how to do that care. But the majority of the hours are done by the loved ones. And that's where there was a big gap there, because people are so paralyzed by fear. They don't know the first thing about end of life. As a hospice nurse, if I'm coming in for an hour or two a visit a week, I'm not able to fully be able to train people to care for the loved one in the full spectrum of end of life the way I'd really want to. And also, in a week's time, or even if I was there a couple of visits, end of life can go so quickly that there's so many different changes. So it's just a big gap in how we need to do things. So what we really want to do is embrace the subject, find the beauty in the whole life's journey, and knowing that one day it will be not here for us to be in this space, but also train doulas, train just like birthing doulas, train people to be the guide from the moment somebody has a terminal diagnosis, through that journey, through that transition, through that actively dying at the death, and even after the death. So we have doulas just like for bringing babies in. We will help people to leave this world as well. Now, we have a couple of different factors that are contributing to, again, this very unhealthy state that we have presently with the relationship with end of life. So healthcare proxies and living wills, these two documents are called an advance directive. And again, at the beginning of the webinar, I was saying how there are elements and things you can do that can help to have a positive end of life experience. And this is one of them. This is one of the major factors, because I studied all of my patients, and I studied the ones who organically were having a better end of life. And believe me, there weren't many. Better end of life experience. What was the difference? What were the elements? I needed to know what the elements were that made that end of life so beautiful and so much better than all of the others. And one of the major factors was the person had an advance directive. They had done their healthcare proxy, they had done their living will. So currently, 87% of people say that it's important to do an advance directive if we ask them. 23% of people in the United States have them done. Of the 23%, only half of those people know where they are. They don't work if you don't know where they are. Death is the second leading fear in this country, in the United States. It's feared many, many other places as well. I work with, again, we have doula givers in 8 different countries, and I've talked to many different countries. You know, this is something that unites us, something that bonds us in our human experience. And I don't care who you are, how much money you have, how many degrees you have, if you live in a big mansion, at the end of life, we are all the same no matter what. And at the end of life, there's nothing that is more true than that fact to show us that. So no matter where you are in the world, end of life will be the same for all of us. And we are there for each other, or need to be there for each other, in the education, support, and kindness surrounding end of life, and the education that we can share with one another, and how we should, again, remember that we're so much more similar than different. So death is the second leading fear in the United States. Everyone always says, well, what's number one? Number one is public speaking, just to let you know that. And this death, the fear of death, is really creating a lot of this dysfunctional relationship on so many levels, not just with the end of life. But I have this saying that, you know, to befriend death is the only way to truly know how to live. Because when you know that one day this experience will not be here the way that you know it, then you really live each day very differently, more in the moment, with more of a sense of gratitude, not sweating the small stuff. There's something really beautiful about that awareness. And I will say that working in the end of life field, when I first started working for hospice, I don't think I've ever felt more alive. I was appreciative of everything, of being able to get out of my car and walk up, you know, to my house and see, you know, if the weather was nice, the sun shining, the flowers, you know, all of the little things that, you know, my patients were not able to walk and to do those things anymore. It just puts you in a state of gratitude on a really unconscious and conscious level that really changes your life. So this journey is going to be incredibly profound and powerful, not only for the patients and families you serve, but for you as well. The number one fear of the dying patient was that they did not want to be a burden to their families. So I worked with many, many people who would kind of pull me over, the patient would pull me over to their bed and say, you know, I hate what I'm causing them so much stress, my family, look what I'm doing to them, it's terrible. And what an awful thing for a dying patient to be worrying. And it was true. The family, the loved ones were completely under this paralysis of fear, walking into walls, not knowing what to do, taking care of the loved one. But it was not the person's fault. It was not that they didn't want to help. They don't know what to do. And we've never talked about death. And I can't believe it showed up because it's not supposed to. So again, the reality of us knowing that one day the journey will not be here as we know it, and empowering ourselves with, okay, what is quality of life to me? Where would I like to be at the end of life? What would make that possible? These are really, really important questions that we should ask subjectively to ourselves and have family conversations. So you never want a person to be in a position where they are dying and they're worrying and feeling terrible about being a burden to the family that's caring for them. So again, end-of-life doulas swoop in there and really guide and support and take that real tension out of the air, because you are guiding that family when they are so fearful in the home environment. It's incredibly beautiful and powerful. So we have another factor that's contributing to right now in our world that's making things extremely difficult. So in the United States, we have 78 million people that are over the age of 65. We have 78 million. So 20% of that 78 million do not have their own children. Normally, the adult child takes care of a dying parent. Not always, but normally. There's 20% that don't even have that option. And I will share with you that 100 years ago, the average age of life was 47. Now it is 79. So we are living so very long that people are living with chronic illnesses. They're living with, things that add to the caregiving for years, even before they're in an end of life situation. So we have an elder care crisis that is happening now, and nobody's calling it. I have been seeing this and kind of raising the flags and trying to get within the healthcare system answers to help the situation when I was in nursing and talking to administration and really trying to say, what are we going to do? We have to do better. And we have to do better as far as the care goes. And people are like, well, we just don't have the time. We just don't have the money. We just don't have the staff. So for me, it was just a no-brainer to come out and make a non-medical profession. I can teach you everything that you need to know to care for people. And it was interesting because this is the exact model that hospice uses. So the hospice nurse will go ahead and teach the family and the loved ones, hopefully, everything they need to know to care for that dying person. But a lot of times we obviously don't have the time to teach them everything. We teach them what we can, they absorb what they can, but they're non-medical, and it works really well if that can be done and achieved. So I thought, well, okay, I can't get this done within the current medical system because of all the regulations and the reimbursement factors, but we surely can have highly specialized holistic practitioners that can do this care without having to worry about documentation for most of the visit, that I can only be there for a short amount of time. It was really wonderful, and here we are today. So we do have an elder care crisis upon us right now. This is only going to get worse in decades to come, statistically. And we'll talk about this periodically throughout the training, but we have, for decades to come, we have so many people that are aging. The aging population is enormous and will continue to be so. So when you look at trends for occupation, and when you look at trends on, what is going to be outsourced, or, different things are going to be replaced by computers and all those kind of things, this is one of the places that a computer, that a robot, that any of that type of technology cannot replace. This is a presence of a human being on a holistic level, and it is incredible. So I love that in one sense, because you can look forward to really embracing this work and occupation for a very long time, and it's so very needed. In fact, it will be, again, one of the big crises that are going to be talked about for decades to come with our elders. Doula givers, end-of-life doula training, the skill of learning how to care for somebody who is dying. Doula, the word doula, is a Greek word that means non-medical person that gives physical, emotional, and spiritual support to someone else. And I came up with the term and the word doula giver, which is that doula who gives. And this is that person who holistically will care for somebody at the end of life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. There are different levels of the end-of-life doula trainings. You are taking the certification course to be the professional end-of-life doula. I also, as you probably know, do a huge outreach globally with a level 1 community caregiver training, and that is to give the skills back to families. Learning how to care for their loved one, learning how to care for somebody end of life before they get there, before it's in front of them, because when it's in front of them, it's a crisis. When it's a crisis, they are frightened. They're not going to absorb the learning, and really there's not enough time to teach them properly. So again, embracing this topic of end of life, bringing in beautiful stories, bringing in what works and what doesn't work, letting it be a natural part of the life's journey again, and letting us be there for one another. You know, I give this training to whoever would like it. I give this on the internet. I just spent a month in Thailand doing, I think, 14 different trainings. It was absolutely incredible. And so this is a human right. As far as I'm concerned, a positive end of life with the education is a human right. It shouldn't be just for people who have access to that kind of education. Everyone should have the ability to take training and to learn if they would like to. And what's beautiful about this training is that without medication, without equipment, without surgeries and treatments and all that, this is so effective. It's a holistic model of care. So if you're on a dirt floor in Zimbabwe, or if you're in a mansion in Millbrook, this training works. Now, if you have medication, if you have those other modalities, yes, it just enriches it and can add to a wonderful end of life, but it works no matter where you are. And so it's really important. So this is your certification training. 100 years ago, like I mentioned, this was a skill that was handed down generation to generation. You know, can you imagine at 46 or 47, people used to die young. People were cared for at home. They died at home. They were kept at home. They had their wakes at home. And so again, it's only the last 100 years that we've medicalized the dying experience, and we've really gotten in the way of a lot of the natural, positive end of life ways that it can go. So we're just going to wonderfully bring back all that we know, and we're also going to add in the wonderful medications that we have and things that you can use to help patients be comfortable. I will really emphasize that end-of-life doulas never give a medication, whether it's over-the-counter medication or a medication that is prescribed. They will be educated. You will be educated in the most common medications used in end-of-life. Why? Because your family, your caregivers are going to be the ones that are administering those medications, and you're going to be evaluating if they understand how to do that, if they're comfortable with doing that. And if they're not, you're going to ask that they request that the hospice nurse come back and retrain them. Medications, I have found, are one of the scariest things for families, to the point that they withhold medication and pain medication because they're afraid to give it. So we don't want that. That will be in your level 2. 3 phases of end-of-life care. This is your foundation of your certification training. You have the shock phase, the stabilization phase, and the transition phase. The shock phase. So I want to just emphasize that this is so important, because when you can identify what phase of end of life your patient is in, and you know the interventions to use within that phase, it is so highly effective and very, very quick. We were on a webinar recently with all the doulas, because we have ongoing support after the certification. You have ongoing monthly mentorship. And we were on with a group that had just graduated, and this one woman had said that she just wanted to thank me, because she said she had a referral even before she had really announced her practice. She went into the house and she identified right away what phase of end of life that patient was in, and she knew what interventions to use, and she said it was perfect, and that she felt so, you know, comfortable and empowered to be able to help them, and it was great. And she said, thank you so much, the training gave me everything. So it's real, these things are really important to understand, and then to know how to utilize them. So the shock phase, this is the very first period of time. This is when someone gets a terminal diagnosis. Oftentimes there's an overwhelming feeling of shock for both the patient and the loved ones. The shock can present itself in many ways, such as depression, denial, anger, and withdrawal. I have to tell you that for about 92% of my patients, it has been withdrawal. So again, the shock is when somebody just gets the news that they have a terminal diagnosis. Maybe they've been going through treatment, maybe they've been ill for a while, or maybe this is a new finding. So it's a shock presentation, and we can only imagine what that must feel like. So what can you do in this phase as an end-of-life doula? It's extremely helpful to remember that this person and family have just lost all control over their life. That's what that perceived feeling is. Telling someone that they are terminally ill and that there is no reversing the process requires those around the family, and that's you, to have a strong, supportive presence. Why is this important? So many people have said to me, Suzanne, I knew someone who got a terminal diagnosis and I didn't know what to say or do, so I didn't do anything. I didn't show up, I didn't call, I just ignored it. And they feel terribly guilty about it. And this is not, I want to say this is uncommon, but people just, we don't talk about this. We don't have these skills anymore. So we need to show up, but you have to understand that you're not there to fix this. You can't fix this. Can you change the fact that somebody is an end of life? Are we supposed to change that, or is this, part of our journey? But what can we do? So it's vital to establish trust, especially when you're working as an end-of-life doula at this point, because you're going to be setting the tone and building the relationship from this moment for the whole journey that you're with this family. So when you establish trust and security with the patient and their family at this time, when their world has been turned upside down, it is so critical. And I'm going to teach you different ways to do that. And it has to happen right away. The old expression about first impressions last forever. Well, there is something really important about this initial period and establishing a trusting bond with people you don't know, people that are in one of the biggest crises in their life's journey. And you have got to establish the trust that they can have in you, because it will set the tone and have this either go well or not go well during your whole experience with them. So what is the best way to do this? The best way to achieve this is through being that strong, solid support. You show up. One of the things that's beautiful about your training is that you are going to show up with so much knowledge. And hopefully, you're already here because you have a comfort level in the end of life space. And when this is so interesting, it's so feared, end of life is so feared, that when I walk into homes for the first time with somebody has a terminal diagnosis, and I'm not freaking out, that I'm there, that I, get to know people. I come in with an open heart, no judgment, really grounded, really present, whatever I can do to be of service. And they're like, well, she does this all the time and she's not freaking out. Maybe we don't need to freak out. So there is something very important to be said about anxiety can be contagious and fear can be contagious. And when you come in, because you know this, you know what happens on the end of life piece, you've been traveling down that road with people, and you're calm and grounded, it really helps to ground everyone. So be that strong, solid support. Never take over. Meet the patient and the family where they are in their process and work from there. Building trust sets the tone for your entire journey with them. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about meeting the patient and the family where they are. What that means is where they are emotionally. Denial and anger and, just an array, and even the withdrawal. These are all part and can be part of the end of life process. And let's talk about the denial for a minute. There are people who are at the end of life and cannot accept that or digest that. And they might stay that way for their whole entire journey. Is it ideal that they stay there? No. Obviously, we want to move them and help them to move through that 3 phases of end of life, to the place of acceptance, and so they can have that beautiful transition out of this world. However, it's not about what we want. It's really about supporting the patient where they are and loving them in that space. Now, I will tell you that organically, and if we have enough time and we build that trust, people really naturally go through the 3 different phases. But again, you don't know, and it's like, you have to love and accept and be there with no judgment wherever they are. So if somebody's in denial, then you don't have to sit there and keep saying to them that they have to face at their end of life. That's not how we work it. We support them where they are and love them where they are. If you give them that trusting place, they will come to that. They will move out of that denial phase usually. The other thing is about never taking over. And this is critical. This is really critical, especially in the beginning and especially in the journey. End of life patients are losing control over their body. They might, and they probably do, look differently. They are weak. It's continuing on that. So maybe somebody was a strapping, high-powered attorney, or he exercised all the time, and maybe he was even a police officer, and now he can't even walk. There's a lot that goes on, mind, body, spirit, in the end of life. And so you have to be really sensitive to that control. And people who are losing control over their being, you want to give them back as much decision making as you possibly can over what they can decide on. I've had patients that have been really just in a place where they didn't have any, people weren't giving them any choices on things, and all they could choose was whether they're not going to take their pain medicine or not, to the point that they would say, no, I'm not taking it, I don't need it, because they felt like that gave them, a power, and they would be writhing in pain and then say, okay, let me have my pain medicine, I'll take it now. And then when the pain is so high, the pain medicine doesn't work. So there's so much education that has to go here. But what I'm trying to say is that we are going to design a care plan as a doula to give every ability for decision making of what patients can choose. The only thing that we don't negotiate on is safety, but we will give them decision making over everything and give them back that control. And there's plenty of things that they can make decisions on, which is really important in that emotional space. So never take over, meet the patient and the family where they are, work from that point forward. And sometimes in end of life, you might take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But usually when you create that loving, trusting space, and you can get those acute issues under control, you can move into a beautiful stabilization phase, which is where all of the magic happens. So give them back control. Let's say, again, we don't negotiate on safety, but I will get, like, this is sometimes how I will, when on my first meeting with my patient, in our conversation, where I kind of lay down that they have control. I let them know that if you want ice cream sundaes 3 times a day, you get it. You can have it. And they kind of giggle, and then they're like, maybe that sounds good to me. Now, what if they were a type 2 diabetic? Could they have ice cream sundaes 3 times a day? Do you think that a type 2 diabetic at the end of life, at a terminal diagnosis, it's a big deal if their sugar goes up a bit? I'm not talking about the skyrocketing. I'm not talking about type 1 diabetics. I'm talking about, type 2, where, it's a chronic long-term disease. Well, it's probably not that big of a factor. And so and most people, don't have diabetes that I'm talking about, but even if somebody did have that, or maybe even had, some high cholesterol, do you think it's an issue if they had something with cholesterol or had a lot of that at this point because they're terminal? No, but I do want to let them know that they are driving this, that I'm here to support them. So if they want ice cream sundaes, they can have it. And so we really try and tailor this beautiful experience with as much support for what they want and what they can do and how they can dictate things. And that really gives them a lot of a feeling of control back. And you'd be amazed at how really well received that can be for them at a time that they feel like they have no control. Meet the patient and the family where they are. When you're an end-of-life doula, you're not only taking care of the patient, you're taking care of the family as well. You're actually not just taking care of the family, you're taking care of the loved ones as well. So it could be a best friend, it could be a boyfriend, it could be the mom, the dad, the brother, the sister, the children. You can have 5, 7 people that are in what I call the nucleus of this end-of-life experience. And each one of those people can be having an entirely different experience related to this end of life. So as a doula, you're taking care of the patient first and foremost, but you're taking care of the loved ones as well. It can be a lot. You have to really wear different hats at times, but it is really important and it's really beautiful. The other thing that's very important to remember, that we don't get a second chance to do this, that we have to give this 150% right at the get-go. We don't have a do-over, and people will remember this end-of-life experience with their loved one forever. If it goes well, they're going to remember that forever. If it does not go well, they're going to remember that forever. And I have so many people that come up to me and say, if I had only known, if I had only taken this training, if I only knew about doulas, if there were doulas at the time, the regrets haunt them for a lifetime. So we really have so many reasons that we want to get this the best that it can be. Build the trust. This is how important this is. So I want to share, I have so many stories, but I want to share this one particular one where I came to work with a woman. She was my patient, and she had come down to live with her son and his family. She was terminally ill. She had lived in a different state, but she had come down to live with them, and they were going to care for her in the end of life process. So when I got to the house, I met the son at the door. He greeted me, and he was in his 40s, and he was a wreck. He was so scared. He was so nervous. I think the first meeting he had medicine in his hand that he was carrying around with him in case she had a need for it, that, because he was so unfamiliar with, I think he was an engineer, so unfamiliar with medications, just uncomfortable with them. And he thought maybe she could go into a crisis right away, and he wanted to have that medicine. It was awful. And it was very interesting because she had had endometrial cancer. And when I met with her, she was doing well. She wasn't having a lot of pain, clear mind, enjoying visits with her family. She could, get up and walk. He was really my first acute issue that I was going to be working with, to get him to breathe and to relax and to learn whatever he needed to learn, enough that he could take a breath and not be in that state. And so it took a while to build the trust with him, but I have to tell you that this was and this was unusual. We had weeks, if not maybe 2 months together, and that's normally not how this works. We usually don't have a lot of time with end-of-life patients because people call end-of-life support very late in the process. But this particular one did last, and it was just start to finish. This whole case had like every beautiful experience that you could possibly have, and everything that I'd want to teach you, which we'll probably refer to it during parts of the training. But what I want to share with you is building the trust with him was so critically important, and right away that needed to be, and that's what we call an acute issue. I'm going to teach you about acute issues. And I would tell him, I would educate him on, her process, and that, he could call me, and that I would call him back within a few minutes, and he would just call my phone and test me and time me about when I was going to, call back. He needed to know that he could trust me. And when I would tell him something, he would fact check it. And as soon as, he did that a few times, he started to calm down. And again, like I said, and I'll share at the end of this case when we get to that section in our training. But from start to finish, this was one of the most beautiful cases. But the trust, and the trust with her as well. You know, she was a little standoffish at first, and, you know, really showing up with an open heart, with no judgment, just being there to be of service to another human being in whatever way you can, is one of the most beautiful things we can do. And when people see that when you show up and you're showing up in that place with that energy, there's a bond that's formed that is one of the most magical bonds of humanity. And it is great. So this was one of those cases. The building the trust was so vitally important for him. It took us a few times, took us a few sessions. You know, and again, he was watching. If I said I was going to be there, you know, 2 o'clock, if I showed up at 2 o'clock, that was a good thing. So all that you say and do is extremely important. And I'll tell you right now, give yourself wiggle room. Give yourself a range of, if you're going to call or make a visit because you don't know about traffic and you don't know about, you know, if you're going to get called up with other patients or something else, you have to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room because they're watching that, especially in the beginning. So, you know, say I'll call you between 2 and 3, or tomorrow I'll come visit between 2 and 2:30. Give yourself a little bit of wiggle room so you can stay within those parameters of being trustworthy and holding to what you say, because all of those things, all of those little things are going to determine if they are going to trust you or not. So really, really important. Okay. There are 3 questions that you're going to ask on every case and in every visit. If you do only these 3 questions, you'll be an excellent end-of-life doula. You're going to learn a lot more, but these 3 questions are going to allow you on every case and every visit to know exactly what you need to do to help that patient and family as an end-of-life doula. First question are there any acute issues? Acute issue is something that's jumping out at you, something that needs to be handled right away. And like I said, he was my acute issue. He was so full of stress and shaking that I needed to, and he wasn't even the patient, that I needed to address, and my patient was stable and fine at that moment, that I needed to address him and get him calmed down. Now, sometimes you'll walk into a case and there's about 3 or 4 acute issues that you have to deal with. So an acute issue can be pain, can be nausea, can be exhaustion, can be like that really stress from a caregiver, anything you see that needs to be handled right away. Second question is, are there any safety concerns? Safety concern can be a fall risk, confusion, weakness, swallowing, maybe even the safety risk of a caregiver not being able to really handle the care and they're alone in the house with the end-of-life patient, which happens all of the time. You know, you'll have an elderly woman caring for her husband at the end of life by herself. It's impossible to do. It is a crime that actually ever happens, that we ever let that happen. Again, end-of-life doulas are here to help. So anything that's a safety concern, and the only non-negotiable that we have in our whole support of patients and their families is that we won't negotiate on safety. Everything else I'm willing to negotiate on and to work with. What other support system do they have? That's the third question. So the first is, what acute issues are there? The second is, are there any safety concerns? And the third question is, what support system do they have? And like I just mentioned, you know, many times there's one person taking care of one person who's dying that needs total care at the end. It's just terrible, impossible, and it should never be done. So we want to, before we get to that place, see what else there is available for support. All right, your whole training is going to be theory and learning, and then you're going to reinforce what you've just learned with an actual end-of-life patient and family scenario. Okay, so I want to see, and I want you to get the feel of applying what you've learned in this lesson to the actual case study by answering just those 3 questions. So let's see what our patient is all about. Okay, an 82-year-old man. He has a diagnosis of terminal cancer. He has been having chemo treatments for the last 9 months. He has a history of arthritis and high blood pressure. He lives in a house with his wife, who is 78 years old. They have been married for 48 years and have 2 children who live out of state. His wife has osteoporosis and cataracts. You enter the house on your first visit to find the man in the reclining chair sleeping in the living room. You notice that there's a cane next to the chair. His wife is at the kitchen table. Her head is down and she is a bit slumped over. You notice that there are dishes overflowing in the sink and that there is unopened mail and papers all over the kitchen table. Okay. When answering the 3 questions, you might also be thinking, what questions do you want to ask this couple in order to be able to help them? But we're only going to take this scenario and answer the 3 questions. You know, I sometimes, again, you need, and we're going to teach you to be really grounded and present before you enter a patient's home. You know, our minds are going in a million directions. The phone is ringing. We have other patients to see, and the kids at home, and I have to cook dinner tonight, and what's happening. Before you go in to work with your patient, you have got to ground yourself and release all of that. You want to really be in there, actively listening, physically being present, observing what you see, intuitively, what are you getting? Because you're going to be learning how to trust your intuition and what you feel is going on, because there's going to be times that you're going to have your patient who is not being able to communicate with you. And so you have to trust that knowing. So let's go back to the beginning of this scenario and let's just answer the 3 questions. So the first question is, are there any acute issues, something that needs to be dealt with right away? And I might not get to see that in its totality from what I get here. I might have to sit down on a visit and really see what I'm getting or ask them a few more questions for acute issues. But let's just take a look. So 82-year-old man with a diagnosis of terminal cancer, having chemo treatments for the last 9 months, history of arthritis and high blood pressure. No acute issue right there. He lives in a house with his wife, who's 78. They've been married for 48 years and have 2 children who live out of state. His wife has osteoporosis and cataracts. You enter the house to find the man in a room, man in the reclining chair sleeping in the living room. You notice a cane next to the chair. So am I going to call out acute issue like crisis? Not yet. I don't know what's happening fully yet. His wife is at the kitchen table, her head down, and she is a bit slumped over. You notice that there are dishes overflowing in the sink and that there is unopened mail and papers all over the kitchen table. So looking at this scenario, just looking here, what would I want to handle right away? What would I want to get? What would I think is an issue by what I'm observing and what I'd want to handle right away? So I'm going to share with you that exhaustion. His wife is at the kitchen table. Her head is down and she's slumped over. So she physically looks exhausted. And then I'm observing what's happening in the house. I'm observing what's going on here, because sometimes people have been, and usually so, ill for a long time. And that can be very, very difficult, and things get let go and you can't keep up. And so there's dishes overflowing and there's unopened mail and papers all over. This woman's exhausted. She's also an elderly woman, and she's been probably going back and forth with him to the doctor's appointments. You know that he's had chemo for 9 months. Chemo is a very difficult road to go down. That's 9 months. You're elder already. So he's probably has a cane. He's probably, he could have a plethora of symptoms from the chemo. One of the things that happens is exhaustion, because all your blood counts go low. So she has probably just been taking on all of this for a long time and she's exhausted. So I'd want to get her some help. I'd want to give her some rest. And I'd actually want to help make the house a little bit tidy. So I'd like to volunteer to help do the dishes and even get somebody in her family to help with the mail and get organized, because we need help right now. So that is the acute issue that I see there. And so let's go back and follow the safety issue. Okay, we have an 82-year-old man with a diagnosis of terminal cancer. Okay, so I want to tell you right off the bat, if you have an elderly person, that's a safety issue. So regardless if they can, walk up mountains and they're really healthy, we don't know that yet. But at 82 years old, we're going to say we have a safety issue because we just do. I mean, we just are not as quick, or there's usually a lot going on there. He has been having chemo treatments for the last 9 months. I want your red flag to go up with that, because if he's been sick with something and having chemo treatments for 9 months and he's 82, again, you probably are going to have a whole plate of symptoms that come with the chemo. You could have digestive issues. You could have, again, you're going to be weak. You could have a brain fog. You can have so many different things that you're going to have to find out, but he's an elderly man that's been going through treatment. Safety, safety, and safety. He has arthritis and high blood pressure. We really don't know, based on this, how much those conditions are impacting him. They might not be impacting him that much at all. He lives in a house with his wife, who is 78 years old. Safety. House. At those ages, where do you think that bedroom is? Upstairs. Where do you think the bathroom is? Upstairs. Never fails. Those are huge safety issues. Also, that you have an elderly caregiver taking care of an elderly man. So there's safety written all over this. They have been married for 48 years and have 2 children who live out of state. So what I'm going to say is that I'm going to keep my eye on the emotional component when you have people who have lived over half their lives together. Think about it. They might, and usually don't, even know what life can be like without that other half. So that's a huge emotional component. They have 2 children that live out of state. His wife has osteoporosis and cataracts. We don't know if that's impacting her daily activities of living. You enter the house, you find the man in a reclining chair sleeping in the living room, and you notice a cane next to his chair. So the cane is a safety issue. I don't even know at this point, can he even walk safely with the cane? We don't know. We're going to have to go over that and assess that. But right off the bat, you have safety issues that are jumping out. And I just want you to get used to right away calling safety issues for elderly in age, for people that live in a house, an elderly couple, chemo treatments, those kind of, somebody who has been using a cane or anything assisted for walking. These are all safety issues. The other thing that's really important for you to understand is that this patient is going to decline. Okay, this is not something where you have somebody who's going through an illness and or it's just for a period of time and they might get better. We know we have our end of life patients, so we know that they are going to progressively decline. So we have to put things in place before they ever get there, because really falls and safety issues can be prevented pretty much 100% if you are really observing and watching and putting things in place before we ever need it. So safety issues can be anything: fall precautions, again, age, living in a house, staircases. I would even say that, having an elderly caregiver taking care of an elderly man, I don't care how well both of them are doing, that's a safety issue, because it's not going to be able to be continued as somebody declines, even if it's working today, which I don't even think it is working today. So His wife is at the kitchen table. Okay, so we talked about that being our acute issue, that we don't have really a safety issue there. So if you see that these 3 questions really are going to bring you to what you need to do for this case, and it's based on priority, because every time you go for a visit, you're going to be asking those 3 questions again. Why? Let's say you're going in as an end-of-life doula every day, and you went in yesterday and you took care of what needed to take care of, and everything is good, everything is stable now. Why on tomorrow's visit are you going to ask, are there any acute issues to yourself? Are there any safety issues? And what's the support system? Because those things can change in a day. So, like I said, if you know those 3 questions and ask them on every case and every visit, you'll be an excellent end-of-life doula. The other things you're going to learn, you're going to be fantastic. So, let's talk about support system. Now, the way it is now, walking into that household, is that something that's working? No, absolutely not. So we know that we have the man in the living room with the cane next to, in the recliner with the cane next to the chair, the woman's at the kitchen table slumped over with, dishes overflowing, mail unopened. So she's exhausted, we need support. So what support system is there? I always have a rule of thumb that I want the caregiver to be the wife as much as possible. I don't want her to be taking on everything. This is the last period of time she has with her husband. I want to be able to outsource and task things to other people so that she can get some rest and be there with her husband, not having to be running around trying to do everything. So what support system do we know of? Okay, so we have 2 children that they live out of state. We don't know if these children have the ability to take off work and come live with their family or come home for a couple of weeks, or do they have the means to hire a doula? We have to be creative. Do these people belong to any community groups, religious groups? What about their neighbors? Do they have friends? I pull from everybody. People want to help. People want to be of help when somebody is at end of life, they don't know what to do. So the doula really manages this whole wonderful way of having, maybe people bring a meal in every night. Maybe we can rotate and have each friend bring a dinner, some kind of dinner in. Maybe somebody can go and, do the yard work, and somebody can go do the grocery shopping, or somebody can help out with the cleaning of the house. Really utilize, people want to help, so we want to pull from everything. So the first thing we need to do is find out about the children. Do they know, what kind of state that their mom and dad are experiencing? A lot of times I'll end up calling adult children that are out of state, and I'll tell them what's going on, and they say, but wait a minute, I just talked to mom on Sunday and she said everything was fine. Well, that's what people tend to do. They tend to not want to burden other people. And so, it's nothing is as truthful as having your eyes and ears on somebody. So maybe the person can come for visits, but they would like to hire somebody to be there continuously so that they can also get, reports and know that their mom and their dad are doing okay. And then when they can come home, they can come home. But we just have to find that out. So that is really all we have here for the support system. Again, we're going to ask, do they have friends? Do they have other relatives that live by? Do they belong to a church or a synagogue or anything? Because these are people that do want to help, and you can coordinate different ways to have people be taking over some of the tasks. So if you can see those 3 different questions, safety, non-negotiable, and can be prevented with really good care and good judgment. When you're really observing and you're seeing, and we'll keep flushing this out. We'll keep talking about it. Acute issues, anything that jumps out at you that's of concern needs to be handled right away for the highest quality of the day. And what support system is there? If you have a son who lives in California and their parents are in New York, and he comes home and he's there for 3 weeks, 24/7, taking care of dad, that's great. Everything's going great. Is it really important to know if he needs to go back and when he needs to go back to work? Absolutely, because most people can't just stay forever. And so what happens if, the doctor said that they thought, the father would die within the 2 weeks and he didn't? This does happen all the time. Well, then, he has to go back to California, and mom, the elderly woman, is alone again. So we have to, before we get there, we have to know what other resources we have as backup. And I like to combine a bunch of different things so it's not on one person. All right, let's do another case study with the 3 questions. Case study 2, you have a patient, she's 74 years old, she's a female with a new diagnosis of terminal cancer. She has a medical history that includes type 2 diabetes and mild hypertension, that's high blood pressure. This cancer is a sudden finding. This patient was experiencing pain in her abdomen for several weeks. After going to the doctor and having tests, they found that she has untreatable intestinal cancer. This patient lives with her husband, who is 78 years old and has a history of a congestive heart failure, high blood pressure, and angina. Remember, when we get up in those ages, we usually have multiple ailments and illnesses that come along with that. They live in the same house for 44 years. The patient has a sister that lives nearby with her husband and adult daughter. The patient has one son who lives in the same town and has a slight learning disability. He lives on his own and works full-time. The son visits his parents often. He loves his mother very much. Very sweet. When doing a case study, always start with the 3 questions. Are there any safety concerns? Are there any acute issues? And what support system is available? So do we negotiate on anything? Yes, we will. The patient is the one that is in charge of everything, basically. You know, we want to give them back. What would they like? Who do they want to be here? Who do they not want to be here? What would they, I'm going to cover all of the choices and things that we have in this journey to share with our patient that they do have the ability to make decisions. The one thing we will not negotiate on is safety. How we do that is really loving, gentle, and kind. It's not saying, no, you can't get up by yourself. You're not safe to walk. Do not get up by yourself. We do not do it that way. We do achieve through love and support and, a little reality check, but we have to be very careful how we do that to not take more control or belittle somebody's experience. So let's go through the 3 questions, starting in the beginning, and let's start with safety. Do we have any safety issues? 74-year-old female, new diagnosis of terminal cancer. Diabetes and hypertension are her history. The cancer is a sudden finding. This patient was experiencing pain, went to the doctor, and all of a sudden, this happens to people. All of a sudden they go to the doctor for something, and the doctor, they do a scan, and it's like, it's time. And that can be a really intense shock emotionally. So I would say if we have any safety issues on here, I'm going to be just highlighting that we have a 74-year-old patient. So we have an elderly patient. That's a safety issue. Patient lives with her husband, who's 78. So she has an elderly caregiver. I mean, if he's, and sometimes you have a spouse who's not really a great caregiver. He also has medical issues. They live in the same house for 44 years. So I just want to go through with safety. So I'm going to say that the age is coming up for safety, and living in a house is coming up with safety. Okay, so those are our 2 safety issues that are right off the bat. Now you're going to have more things when you go in and you are going to do your initial assessment. You are going to really see what's going on, and you're going to come up with a whole bunch of other acute issues, safety issues, and obviously find out what the support system is. But right now we're just going to go off of what we've gotten on this page. So those are our safety issues. Let's talk about issues. So I would say right now on this page, the acute issue is going to be the sudden finding of that terminal cancer. That is going to be the shock, times 100, if not more, because somebody didn't have a path that they were ill and dealing with that and kind of, getting that into the reality of their life and thinking about it. It's all of a sudden, boom, and you're terminal. So somebody's just telling you that you have a limited time left, that you had no sign or symptom or idea that that was going to happen. So that's going to be an acute issue for both that patient and that family. The patient lives with her husband. Same house for 44 years. Again, we have that emotional bond of people who have lived together for over half of their life. So that's another, huge kind of emotional acute issue that I'm going to be really be watching and working with. And there's something else here that's important, the acute issue. So it really goes with the support system, but it's an acute issue because the son has a learning disability and he is very involved with his parents and he loves his mom very much. So as a doula, this is a time when I would really be bringing in the social worker for hospice and being like very much engaged with our hospice team on that level and be watching the son to see if he's having what issues he's having. If he's having issues, he's probably going to, it's going to be a process, and having the social workers coming and working with him more than they might usually work with a family, just because of that connection and that learning disability. So I also want to highlight the support system here. So those elder couples, that's not really going to be a great support system, having an older person taking care of another older person who's dying. And I really want to they usually have been, caring for them there for years. That's their spouse, and they've, been, dealing with illnesses for a while. At this stage, at this point, we want to really allow the wife to be the wife, the husband to be the husband, and allow other people, if possible, to come in and help with that caregiving, to take the pressure off of that one person. And we know that the one person cannot do it alone, period. But we really do want to use more than that to take away all of the tasking to allow them to be present with their loved one at this last period of time. So let's talk about what we have as far as support system. We know that the patient has a sister that lives nearby. Yes, bingo, that sounds great to me. She lives with her husband. The sister has a husband and an adult daughter. Right there, I've got 3 people that I think that can be really instrumental in doing a lot of that caring. The son, is he going to be a support system as far as caregiving? Am I going to be putting the responsibility on him to do it? Absolutely not. Yes, we're going to give him things to do. He's going to come in. He's going to read to his mom. He's going to help get her something to eat. He's going to do what he can do as a loving son, but with no pressure. We're not having him take any responsibility on that because it's too much. He's got a learning disability. He is going to be dealing on an emotional level that's going to be very challenging to deal with the death of his mom, and we don't want to add any way, shape, or form to that, and it's not appropriate. So we're going to really, again, focus on the sister, the husband, and the adult daughter of the sister. And again, we always want to see from our families, do they belong to a church? Do they belong to another religious group? Do they have friends? And can you start that, that chain of information that you can disseminate to loved ones, to families about what's happening and what they can do to help if they'd like to do something to help. And everyone usually does, they just don't know what to do. So I usually give out assignments, and so people can again bring in food, make a dinner and bring that every, we rotate the days, and even people can come and stay with the patient to give the main caregiver a break. And these little breaks in time are really, really important for people to recharge their batteries. So we pull from everything. So are there any safety concerns? Are there any acute issues, and what is the support system? These are the 3 questions that are your foundation that you need to ask in every case on every visit. In addition to that, you want to identify what phase of end of life your patient is currently in and the interventions that you will use for comfort and for care in that phase of end of life. And today we covered the shock phase. Let's review. So the shock phase is that period of time that somebody gets a terminal diagnosis, and it's a really difficult, awkward space. A lot of times, again, people don't really know what to do there, and so they avoid people. And people often put a lot of emphasis, and rightly so, on the very last phase, the dying phase, the 11th hour, they call it. They say that's when they need help. That's when you need to be there. But I disagree. You need to be there then, but you also need to be there here. When somebody first gets their terminal diagnosis, this turns people's lives upside down. This is one of the scariest times for families, and we need to show up right away. And usually people have been going through illness and things for a while before they actually get to that terminal diagnosis. So things can really be a mess and downhill. So this is one of the most critical places that a doula would show up, as well as the whole journey, but also being there at the end. So shock phase review, be a supportive presence, show up, listen, ask people how they're doing. What can you do? You want to ask them, what can I do for you? That's giving them control back. Give patient back control. Let them direct you. Don't you assume what they need. You might have some ideas what can really help, but again, you have to be very careful on how you don't take over this case. So ask them, what can I do for you? I'm here to be, the hands and do things for you that you might not be able to do right now. Very, very powerful, and things that you wouldn't think of. Meet the patient and the family where they are and work from that point forward. Build the trust. Ask 3 questions in every case and on every visit. You'll be an amazing practitioner if you do that. Okay, homework for Certified End-of-Life Doula Training, Level 1, Week 1. Please get a journal or a notebook, and this is going to be used just for your homework assignments. We're going to be doing a lot of introspective looking during the journey of learning end of life with your own attachment, emotions, and your own perspective on end of life. I think one of the best ways to help someone else is to be able, as much as you can, to feel what it might be like for what they're going through. And we want to really, again, make sure that we're fully comfortable and know end of life for our own perspective, so that we're not, again, putting any kind of perspective or, different kind of things that you can subconsciously be doing if you're not crystal clear on your own relationship with end of life in all its nuances. So we're really going to take that journey for ourselves as well, and we're going to do that through our homework assignments. So the first assignment is to please try as best you can to put yourself in the position of someone who has just gotten a terminal diagnosis, finding out that you have a limited time left for the journey as you know it, can have an array of emotions, and just allow that to be there. Write down how you feel. Please share what you need most. This is very important. Please think about this. What do you need most from others in this phase? Pick anything you'd like. We want to hear from people. We want you to think about what would support you the most, and what do you not need from people at this time. Be open, be candid, and do this more than one time period, because you might have, again, as end-of-life patients go through kind of the ups and downs and the different levels of intensity, you might one day be feeling, oh God, everything's crazy, I can't handle this, this is terrible. Everything is correct, by the way, and then you might have a place where you have digested a little bit of it, you have thought about it. So try it from a couple of different time periods. And again, really allow your truth to be on. This notebook is only for you. You don't have to share this. You can share it in the Facebook group if you'd like, but you don't have to. But I really want you to be completely honest with your emotions relating to what we're going to do for homework. So this one is getting that terminal diagnosis, regrets, all of the things that that you would be feeling if you were in that place. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being part of this movement, and congratulations on the completion of your first class. This was Level 1, Week 1, Certified End-of-Life Doula Training with Doula Givers.
Oh my gosh, we did it. How was that? It was a lot of information, huh? Um, I am going to be brave again, and I'm going to share my screen because I wanted to share with you guys something important, but let me get to that screen first. Um, and then let me find you again. Here we go. So I'm going to share my screen again. Um, oh, let's see. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to share one more time just to show you guys where the you want to be sure when you finish this module so that you can continue to advance. And I'm just sharing this with you because I got stuck on this when I took this course too. So I'm going to share one more time and I'll show you. Okay, can you guys all see this? Okay. Um, okay. So what I want you to do is, oh, I want to show you. Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Amy, perfect. Thank you, Amy. If you guys can see this on the screen, so here's the shock phase workbook right here. So if you weren't able to have a chance to download the workbook, I would encourage you to do that. It'll go over the care plans that Suzanne talked about in during the training, and then also there's some great comes kind of some space to kind of work that through. And I would encourage you guys to work through the care plans this week and see how comfortable you feel as you begin to work on those care plans. And then the next part is the reflection. And I really want to encourage you guys to take some time to do that. I want to tell you, you do not have to turn this in at all. So just be sure to work on that. You can share it in the Facebook group if you would like to, but you don't have to, and you don't have to turn this homework in. So there's no grading on this first homework assignment, but I do want to encourage you guys to share your thoughts and reflections in the group and see how your homework is doing. So, but I did want to go down. So you go through this page here where it says Module 1, it talks about the shock phase, and then you're going to go ahead and click here, Lesson Complete. You're going to mark it as complete. And then it's going to go on to the next lesson. So just make sure as we go through this that you print out your workbook and that you be sure and mark that lesson complete. So I wanted to make sure we have that. I know we have gone way over, and that will not be the usual here for this group. We just had our welcome ceremony. I just wanted to make sure that that we had time for that. But I think let's take, if you guys, if would it be okay if maybe we did maybe 10 minutes of Q&A? We can just see if you guys have any questions about what was reviewed, and just want to see if you guys are open to that. Would that be okay if we maybe took 10 more minutes? I did want to reassure you that this is all being recorded. So if you have to dash, that's completely fine. It will be recorded and shared with you. Yeah, so, and then that reflective process of, maybe take some time to work on that. So how was that training? How did that feel for you guys? Does anyone, so I have, like I said, I'm not very tech savvy, but I have 4 screens. So um, oh, one thing I want to just kind of also mention is that because the chat becomes kind of busy, and so it's kind of hard to find questions. So if you don't feel comfortable, and if you want, I'll just review that real quick. So if you want to ask a question here on this live session here, you can raise your digital hand, which is at the bottom of your screen. I'll do an example here. And then what happens when you raise your digital hand, it'll notify me that you have a question. So that's how you do that. But also in the chat, please be sure and do #question so that I can answer those questions for you. So I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to go into the chat here. And there are oh my gosh, there's a lot of love here. Thank you guys so much. Okay, so I'm gonna just start. Let's see. Let me go through the questions. Okay, everybody's doing thumbs up. Thank you so much. So if you could do me a favor, oh, perfect. Hashtag question in the chat. And Hillary, let's start with you. So we'll just kind of I'll try to answer the questions as quickly as I can because I know your time is valuable. And then one thing I want to just say too is to please, if I don't get to your questions in the chat, please be sure and do hashtag question in the Facebook group, and then we will be sure and respond to your questions that way. And again, I'm so sorry about going over. We will be more mindful of time next week. So Hillary, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you. I didn't do the hashtag thing. I asked a question before you gave the instructions, so my apologies.
That's
But my
okay.
question is, what is the tool or the wording or the actions that the end-of-life doula would give to the patient who is feeling like a burden to the family? What are the ways of talking to the person who really feels like a burden, because we can't make them feel any other way than what they're feeling. So just kind of curious, what kind of tools or things up your sleeve did Suzanne have or anybody have?
That is a great question. And I think that one I have certainly not perfected at all. I think just validating, that sometimes people may feel like they are a burden. And so sometimes I ask reflective questions, what makes you feel that you're a burden, and really just validating where they're at. Maybe it's increase in weakness or, somebody to have to care for them physically, and just really being able to, we're not going to be able to change the situation. And so just honoring where they're at. I do a lot of reflecting back their question and just really supporting them, and I do also love to say, especially if it's their grown children that are caring for them, you know, um, kind of bringing it back full circle about, you spent so many years caring for your child, and so really act as if this could be able to give them the gift back to care for you. And if the roles were reversed, I think sometimes it's just a way of honoring one another to be cared for in that position. It's
Okay.
super humbling to be cared for. So thanks, Hillary, so
Thank
much.
you.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
question. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And Antonia, nice to see you. Welcome. Let me unmute you there. There
Hi,
we go.
Christine.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi.
hi. Oh, I just have a logistical question. I put it in the chat too, because I can't, and
Okay.
it's too much information to ask about the process right now. I'm on overload. But no, just in terms of like notebooks and logistics of that, because I thought I saw something in all the stuff that you guys sent this week about having a notebook with 2 sections. And then also she was mentioning like a journal for the homework. Like, just can you just speak to that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think so for me personally, I printed out all of my workbooks and I put them in a 3-ring binder. And then
Okay.
I had a journal that I used just to kind of journal my process. But then I also had like just lined paper that I was working on my care plans with, and so it was all kind of sectioned out. So you can choose. You can create whatever feels right for you, but I definitely would strongly encourage you to get a journal and then begin to print out your papers for the workbooks, and then just
Workbook.
adding just loose leaf paper. That's how I did it. I'm kind of old school though. I'm sure that the people are
Oh,
way more tech
I'm
savvy.
just like you. I'm not techie at all, and I do enough of it.
Yeah. Perfect, perfect. I'm still like so much attached to paper. So yeah, so whatever feels right for you. I'm sure some of these young whippersnappers can just do it online and just keep, I'm not that tech savvy. So yeah, great
Okay.
question. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
You're so welcome. Angela, you are next. Let me unmute you there.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great training. Quick question for you. Logistically, looking at online, so we just went through the training that Suzanne did, but then looking at like the 2 downloads for the webinar transcript and the workbook. And then there's also another video. Is the video there the same thing that we just looked at, or is there another video with more information?
It should be the same video. And the video, the webinar session that we are doing right now, we're recording that. So that's going to be posted in your group as well. So it should be the same. I can't, I'll just make sure, but I'm pretty sure that it's the same as what we just watched. So the workbook, the transcript, and then the video. So great question.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Welcome, welcome. And Miss Amy,
Thanks.
welcome. You're welcome. Let me unmute you. Perfect.
Can you hear me?
It's kind of quiet, but I can hear you.
Can you hear me better?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. I had a question. So, when it comes to safety, you know, we're not compromising that. What would the appropriate response be, such as the patient that really should be using a walker, but is refusing? You know, we're meeting them where they're at, but we're like, oh, this could be a horrible situation, and you don't want to feel liable. What would the appropriate response be when they're refusing to use something like that?
Oh, that's a great question. Been in many situations like that. Um, uh, we have to really just honor people where they're at. And I think that they may or may not be aware of the risks involved. For me personally, I really try to, and we'll talk more about this in the training, but for someone, especially, as we get older, we have to go to the bathroom more often. And so maybe making some suggestions about using a bedside commode, or maybe and maybe offering a urinal or something, so that somebody can have some support, so that they're not having to use so much energy as going back and forth to the bathroom. There are, some people that are just, my mom for one, it was just like, no, I'm not using that bedside commode, and we did everything we could to just honor where she was at. But as people progress in the disease process, they can become very, very weak. And, eventually they're not going to be able to get out of bed. They may try to get out of bed. And so, really just honoring where they're at. And this might be multiple conversations. Ultimately, if it does feel like someone is continuing to maybe make choices that would put them more at a risk, you might be more inclined to maybe talk to the hospice care provider, because really they are in charge of the care. And so really saying, I'm seeing some red flags here for safety, and maybe they can also help support. Those are really tough conversations. And really, people, when they get their diagnosis and they continue to they lose so much more. They just lose control. They lose all this control. And so really allowing them to have as much control as possible is really best. But it's a hard conversation to have. So just being really gentle and kind. I love what Suzanne talked about, of really not, if you do this, you're going to fall. They may have full mental capacity to be able to make that decision on their own, but falls are like that, those are non-negotiable in my world. Even considering bed rails, or I really try to bring things in closer to the person. If you're noticing that they're reaching for their phone or remote or whatever, things like that, just making sure that they're really accessible for them. Did that help answer your question?
Yeah. Would you suggest we would even keep some kind of notebook of, like, even if the family's questioning and some fall happens, and say, spoke to your mom on this day, kind of thing? When my husband was on hospice, I started an actual notebook where I would write my concerns, and then they would write like vitals in there and everything. And if he had a fall, I would assess, and, that kind of thing. Would, just for like to protect you, would you recommend had this conversation this day, they refuse, kind of thing, along with talking to hospice and the family?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that it's important to have open communication, and really And we'll go along, you know, as we continue on this journey together. There's going to be all sorts of resources that will be available for you guys, such as a great communication log, just like what you're suggesting. So very, very important. You know, especially depending on the disease processes, sometimes confusion can happen, and people, you know, their mind says yes, but their body is saying no. And so safety is very important. Yeah, having a communication log is a great idea. Yeah, perfect, Amy. You're already on it. Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, Kim Renee, last question. And I'm so sorry, you guys. I do see um, um, there's so many questions in the chat, and I'm so sorry. I do want to honor your time. So we're gathering those questions, and then I'll answer those in the Facebook group. So please, again, hashtag question. And Kim Renee, let's do your last question. Thanks so much. Good to see you. Let me unmute you here. Oh, there we go. Got it. We did it.
Thank you. Mine
You're
is quick.
welcome.
That it's based on that safety issue as well. They talked about things like this, the people who might have stairs in their home, things of that nature. Um, is there like resources or anything that you guys will have where we can find like things to help with that, like maybe the locks for staircase doors, or I don't know what kind of things you would do to keep people safe in those type of issues.
Yeah, you know, gosh, Kimberly, that is a really good question. So, you know, I think one of the beautiful things about a doula giver is that we just have a really wider lens to be able to identify those safety risks. And so hospice will come in and you know they're so busy with taking care of the physical care. The doula giver can really see those safety issues, you know, like just kind of be able to anticipate the needs way before. So, you know, all we can do is make suggestions. There isn't actually a list of items, but I think that maybe keeping again, like Amy was mentioning, keeping an open line of communication so that we can really be able to anticipate those needs. You know, with dementia and Alzheimer's patients, you know, confusion can really set in, and you know they may elope and locks on the doors and things like that. And so usually a family member will have already kind of have that awareness, because they get admitted to hospice a little later. But yeah, that's a great idea. So we don't have necessarily a list, but being able to be in open communication with the hospice company will be so vital, and it's a three-way, it's a team effort. So hopefully that answered your question. Was that helpful?
Yeah, it was a little personal thing just because my great aunt was not in hospice. Fortunately, she was not, but unfortunately, she did have dementia and she did sleepwalk down a flight of stairs, and unfortunately, that's how she passed. So, that really connected to me when she was talking about the people with the stairs and the safety concerns.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm so sorry. I just want to take a minute. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think I wish that everybody can have a doula, you know, because really being able to see um, you know, have that extra layer of support and really just being able to see with a much different lens. And I think that that you're going to be an amazing doula, Kim Renee. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, we have gone way over. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna look at the chat, and you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for joining. And don't forget to do your homework, and please let's stay active in the group. I'd love and love and love to see your mission statements. That's part of your homework too. So let's get on that and have a beautiful week. And there is an opportunity for a classroom on Friday. So be sure and go to the Facebook group. There's a link. So there is a opportunity for office hours. So that'll be Friday from, I believe it's 9 to 10 on Friday. All the information is on the Facebook group. I'm so sorry that we went over, but we will see you again next week and I'll see you in the Facebook group. Okay. Have a good night, you guys. Thanks so much. Okay. Bye bye.